Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to chat to you today. I'm going to be going through gamification. There's a lots of buzz around gamification. We hear it quite a lot. So what I'm going to focus on is how we can actually use that through mobile to be able to engage attendees. But what's the theory behind it? I'm quite geeky around the psychology behind games and why they're really important to our industry. Can everybody hear me okay? Just to double check on the headsets. Yeah, are we all good? Fantastic. Lovely. All thumbs up. So we're going to go through some game theory today. Lots of buzz around it. It means many different things, but we are going to cover some core gaming psychology, which I get quite excited about. And to start off with this, just to introduce myself, I work at Cven. I'm in the mobile division of Cven. Been in the industry now for about 6 years, but in technology for a while. So again, a little bit geeky when it comes to this kind of technology. So first and foremost, what I want to run through is the fact that game theory is really important, and that's what drives the engagement behind that. And everybody actually gets motivated by a quest. This is one of the key and core gaming mechanics. It's the reason why we have these to-do lists and we write them down. It's the reason why Pokemon Go, for example, that worked quite well. How many of you played Pokemon Go? I did that. I did it. I tried to stop doing it for a while, but I actually did, and I got hooked. And for those who don't know it, I mean, Pokemon Go, again, was just one of those quests where you walk around, you use an augmented reality, you're trying to catch Pokemon in normal areas like this. And it was really, really important for the progression of augmented reality to a wider audience, but at the same time using gaming mechanics that really work. So firstly, I wanted to go into one of the key one of the key theories behind why games work. So the first one is the Zeigarnik effect. Now, the Zeigarnik effect, for those of you not familiar with it, this is essentially the tension that we get when we have incomplete tasks. It's that tension that we have, you know, when we're at the end of a TV show. It's the reason why we watch 5 episodes of our favorite show rather than just one, because at the end of it leaves us with a cliffhanger. It leaves us feeling incomplete. Again, it's the reason why we have to-do lists, because we're just wired to want to complete tasks. And this is really important in gaming mechanics. It's the reason why we have those registration steps, where you've got step 1, step 2, step 3. That's gamification. That uses a Zeigarnik effect because people want to complete that. If you go through PayPal, creating a profile, that does the same thing. And just to test if I can actually create this effect, I'm just going to show you an image and just try and get a sense of whether you feel the Zeigarnik effect by looking at this. Ooh, look at all those emails. How much tension do we have looking at that, thinking, oh no, if that was my inbox, I would be going crazy. That's a Zeigarnik effect. That's why we want to complete things. Really important in gaming mechanics. And it's a reason why things like this make us freak out, essentially. Now, the next one that's really important in gaming mechanics is endowed progress. And I'm going to show you how these are applied to actual gamification within events. But endowed progress for me is a really interesting theory. It's basically where we have some artificial enhancement that actually increases effort. So we enhance something in order for our delegates to want to complete it. Now, to give you an example of why this is important, there is a study where they sent 2 different cards for people to complete stamps at a car wash. One of the cards had 8 stamps to complete, but no stamps were on there whatsoever, so the attendees had to actually complete the whole of the card. And then the next one, they had 2 stamps that were already in there. Now, the theory goes that the one that already had 2 stamps on there, like when you get a coffee and they already put the stamp on there, because we've also already had some form of artificial enhancement, that means that they're more likely to complete that. And they were. There were twice as many people redeemed the one where they had to complete. I mean, it's the same number, it's still 8, but because they had that enhancement on the second, that means that they were completing it. So again, that's really important when we're looking at gaming mechanics, and then all this actually starts to create this virtual loop. Think about Pinterest. The way that works, you put a pin down, it starts to give you more pins, and it's just one virtuous loop of action and triggers. So that really, really helps. And then again, when we think of gaming mechanics, we have to think of different gamer types. Now, interestingly enough, when we think of gamification, a lot of people are drawn directly towards a leaderboard and some kind of incentive for people to climb a leaderboard. But in fact, only 10% of people fall into the first category, what we define as killers, for want of a better term, which is essentially people who are just in it to win. That's only 10%. 90% of people, if we do a wide spectrum of humanity in general, then they fall into the second two categories. So it's not important just to have leaderboards, but to actually apply those gaming mechanics and think about that in everything that we're doing. So what we're doing is trying to apply this. We want to apply it in a way that we're going to increase engagement, and at the same time, we're going to utilize that engagement for increasing it for delegates, for sponsors, and we're going to explore different ways, and often there are different types of gamification. So what we really need to do at first is look at the event goals. What are the goals for this? Is it networking? Is it trying to bring direct revenue from sponsors potentially? Once we've identified those event goals, that's when we can really start to go in and think about what kind of game we have in there. So let's explore a couple of different ways we can apply those theories to gaming, to actual mobile engagement. And the first one is an example that we have here at Cvent as well, that a lot of people are using, not just Cvent, but a lot of mobile app providers out there are using this kind of gamification. And the first one is using endowed progress. So remember that that's an artificial enhancement in order to get them to complete a task. So what happens here is that you actually go into a game, as soon as you download a mobile app, you start to collect points for clicking on sponsors. You collect points for clicking on attendees and networking with them, filling out surveys. And they automatically appear as soon as you start clicking around. So what happens then is endowed progress comes in, and people start thinking, wait a minute, I'm playing a game. Oh, I've already got some points on the board. Wait a minute, I'm near the top of the leaderboard. This is great. So I'm going to continue to explore that app, and I'm going to continue to complete these challenges and these tasks throughout that. So think about some ways in which you can provide that artificial, and I say artificial, it doesn't have to be artificial, that's just by definition, but this way of being able to give them a head start when you're looking at gamification and events. And then, of course, you get these points, and that starts to create this kind of competitive edge, and people go to the leaderboard, so that's really important as well. Now, the next one really to run through is one that we have, like photo scavenger hunt games. This actually uses a Zeigarnik effect more than anything. So remember, the Zeigarnik effect is the tension that we have for incomplete tasks. The two kind of go hand in hand, but what happens here is that you can start to create challenges and create tasks for people. In order to complete those challenges, they may take photos in and around the venue. So you probably used photo scavenger hunt games yourself. Again, this uses really smart game theory behind it. And you can start to really generate a lot of content from users. Think about challenges where you want to drive them to network with each other. Go and take a photo with somebody you've never met. Go and take a photo with an exhibitor from your hometown. All these different things that we can really get creative with. As soon as we've got people playing it, these game theories will start to click into place, and they will complete it, and you'll start to generate a hell of a lot of content from that. And why does something like this work? And it's really important to bear in mind that it works essentially because everybody has a smartphone. We actually did a study at Edelman of 1,000 attendees and over 1,000 delegates, and we actually found out that 100% of the millennials that were studied at the event delegates that we studied, of 1,000 of them, 100% had a smartphone, millennials. But also, these were quite surprising for me. So Generation X and baby boomers also always have a smartphone. We all have it near us, close by. It's the reason why we've got so many event app providers. It's the reason why we put so much emphasis as technology providers into utilizing mobile, because everybody has it. So it can really be channeled through that. And it can really help facilitate networking. It can really help generate revenue. Think about sponsors for these kind of type of games. An example that we had from a client that utilized the photo scavenger hunt game was they actually sold on challenges to their exhibitors. And those challenges were anything that would drive people to their booth. So go and grab a coffee with Nick from Cvent. There's a coffee machine on the stand. You get 10 points for that. You'll climb up the leaderboard. One of them actually had this small kind of robot on the booth, one of the exhibitors, and one of the challenges was go and find out the name of the robot. And then what happened was everybody was walking up going, hey, I've got to find out the name of the robot. What is it? And they're going, well, let's have a conversation first, and then we'll get this photo in place. And it could just facilitate that kind of conversation. So more people can be driven towards those exhibitor booths. So it can help generate that revenue too. So how can we increase the engagement? I just wanted to run through 5 kind of clear steps of how we can utilize gamification, but how we actually use it effectively, and it just not becoming a gimmick, which is always at risk when using gamification, that we do it tech for tech's sake. We don't want that to happen. We want it to get a return. So first and foremost, the first step really is we've got to market it before the event. You can weave it into existing channels. For example, when you send out the email or the notification to download an app, instead of just saying download an app for the event, we've got, why don't you download the app and take the first challenge, and just weave it into that communication. Creating videos, a lot of our clients create videos around gamification and send those out as part of that, and of course weaving it into event websites just goes without saying. And then at release emails, weaving it into that and just promoting that. And of course, notifications are really important. For me, notifications are one of the most powerful tools, especially through mobile, because there was a study that showed 97% of notifications are read, which is kind of crazy, but it makes sense because the phone buzzes in your pocket, it comes out, we think it's like a text message. So it's really vital that any communication, if we want to get people engaged, that we can channel it through notifications. Now, the worry is that we're going to annoy the hell out of everybody if we're sending too many notifications. So we've got to be really smart about the way we do that. And one of the ways in which a lot of tech providers are exploring this, and I'll certainly ask this to any technology that you provide, is there a way that we can personalize notifications? Is there a way that I could just send a notification just to this room, just to this side of the room, rather than these guys who are not playing the game, who are not necessarily engaged with that, actually just sending it to everybody on the leaderboard so that we're not bombarding everybody with irrelevant information? Maybe you split it up to internal staff. So being able to personalize that, again, is really key. And again, on-site signage, making sure that we don't just put signage up around where to go, what to do, but reminders, constant reminders throughout the event that there is this game that's available and you can win prizes for that, which we'll come to in a moment. But make sure that your team are advocates of this as well. Every time we're on site at an event, one of the key things that I always tell to my team is make sure you're on that leaderboard. Make sure you're going around and taking those photos and creating that content and generating that excitement. Because inevitably, as soon as people start with that game, those theories again will click into place, and then they'll get really engaged in that content. And the second one is all about connecting attendees. The same study that I was talking about with Edelman just showed that people attend events for 2 main reasons: professional development and networking. We kind of already knew that, but it just proves how powerful networking really is, and the face-to-face is why we're all here. So we can really utilize gamification to facilitate that. And of course, then you can customize challenges. We mentioned it before. Go and find the worst dancer you can find on the dance floor, take a photo of it, one of the challenges, whatever it may be, create fun, exciting challenges for them to connect with each other. Take a photo of your favorite exhibitor, connecting people again. But the key is to keep them connected. And again, one of the biggest mistakes I see with this kind of technology and gamification is that it's utilized maybe for 2 days of an event. But in fact, there's nothing else that will stop you from keeping that going. People will still have a mobile device stored on their phone long after the event. So we always make sure that we try and get our clients particularly to continue to update those challenges 2 weeks after the event. So when they're in the home, when they're in their office, when they're back at work, they've had an amazing event, they've been there, they've engaged a lot, but we want to try and continue that kind of level of engagement so we can keep updating that as we continue to go. And then fourthly, we want to make sure that we show the progress. I know I mentioned before that it wasn't the most important thing, because 10% of people will fall into that category that just want to be top, and the rest just want to get engaged. So we want to make sure that we're utilizing the progress to show that 10% of people, but again, it falls in line with incentivizing them, which is the last one really, is making sure that we've got a reason and an end goal. Think about that quest that we spoke about earlier. Everybody loves a quest because there's an end goal and there's a strive to reach that target. A bottle of champagne for the winner, a free registration for next year, whatever it may be. So as we're going to start to kind of come towards the end here, I think we're kind of flying through this, so I'm going to open it up for some questions to get the interaction going as well. But before I do that, it's really important to integrate social into this as well. Now, as a recap, we've got 5 key ways here. We've got making sure that we market it before the event and during the event, different ways we can do that. Let's get attendees connected with each other, but also let's maintain that connection after the event, as well as showing that game progress and then having an end goal and giving them a prize. All of this will lead to great content, which you can really utilize on social media channels. All these, your delegates essentially becoming advocates for your event. They're taking these photos in and around the venue, they're taking photos of exhibitors, so then you can really utilize that. So we want to make sure that it's way more effective when it's utilized with social media. You can update your social media channels with who the winner is or who the leader is at that point. I've seen it done really effectively where organizers for events that I've been to have updated Twitter and actually linking the leader with their Twitter handle, so you can actually link them in and then say, hey, this person's winning, where are you on the leaderboard? And it just gets really effective. And that kind of content can, of course, be displayed on a live screen. Who doesn't want to see themselves on a big screen? I mean, I'm not one of those kind of people that really thrive off seeing myself in pictures, generally look awful. But at the same time, I'm one of those people that actually looks out for it. You know, we've got awards ceremonies, whatever type event it may be. If you do have screens where you've got the ability to put this kind of content live, it will increase that engagement still. So that's kind of all I wanted to run through in terms of gamification. I noticed a few questions that were coming through here as well. So I'm going to just take a moment to read through and answer these. So the first one being, what's the most serious, non-fun way you've seen gamification used? That's a really good question, actually, because a lot of the elements were fun and creating challenges and taking photos. I've actually seen it done in a number of ways. I think there's so much gamification theory around the way we get people registered for events and those steps. But really, the best way for me is during marketing. I actually seen it was an example from our team on the mobile side, that essentially what they did was they created a what type of planner you are, or what type of event organizer. And then people were going in and they were completing a quiz. And we did it on a booth stand as well, say, hey, come and take the quiz. And it sounds as though it's a fun element, but it's serious in the sense that what we get is we get data from those people, of course, but then at the same time, we get to understand how they run events. And then what we did was personalize the follow-up. So we could personalize it. If you were, one of those, we had this like event type or event planner type that was the natural. If you were that type, then we knew exactly how to market and how to follow up with that particular type of person. So that was one of the best ways that I've seen it used. Did anybody have any questions that have not gone through the app? I'm going to read through these, but did anybody have any additional questions that they wanted to pop their hand up? No? Just thought I'd open it up there. There's a few that are coming through. So the next one, do you use incentives for people to participate in photo scavenger hunt, so a prize for the winner, or is the competition enough of a driver? Again, another really good question. And the competition is enough, in all honesty. The competition will get people engaged. But there is no reason why you can't get sponsored prizes. I think that's really done effectively. For example, a lot of hotels at our events will sponsor a 2-night stay, and they get a lot of exposure through the gamification. And those kind of prizes will help on both sides, but I would always incentivize. I think it will work without, but I would always incentivize, just solely because people want to win something at the end of the day. And of course, the completing this challenge generated content, one of the great reasons why it works very well is at the end of it, we always again do this at events that we're running, and a lot of our clients will then, the last keynote speaker will announce that winner on the stage and they'll come up and collect the prize. And it drives people to that session, generally drives people to that last keynote session, stick around because they want to know who the winner is. And do you have any stats around typical event app take-up? Again, a really good question, and honestly, it's very difficult to answer that one. The reason is it depends on how you market the event app. I've seen some amazing event apps that look fantastic that nobody downloads because they don't know where it is. I've seen terrible looking apps that everybody's downloaded because they know exactly where it is. Now, we did some studies on this. In the industry, on average, 48% of people will download an app for an event. I think that's crazy low. So we also did in the same study what the top percentage do. So those people who get 80, 90, 100% of event app adoption, what they do. And they incorporate a lot of interactivity. They incorporate some live polling, live Q&A. That always drives the adoption rate. They market it a hell of a lot prior to the event, but then they do a lot on site at the event. There are ways in which you can manage it. It'll come in, maybe you've got the QR code inside of an event app, and that's the one that you scan when you get in, so it could drive more adoption rate that way. So there's a lot of tools that we can do, and if anybody's really keen on seeing a study that we did, it's really interesting generally around event app adoption, just give me a shout and we can certainly send that out to you. Another question coming through here, they're coming through thick and fast. So how complicated and long can a registration form be before the Zeigarnik effect is overruled by annoyance and people leave registrations incomplete? Great question, I love that. Honestly, I don't have any stats around this, and I don't presume to be an authority on it. I think 4 steps is probably the best way to go. I think that's the one that, what they call the PayPal. PayPal use 4 steps for their profile. They use the Zeigarnik effect really well. And then I think Amazon do something similar when you get to the checkout. So the less clicks you get before you can do before you get there, it really helps. So we're seeing a lot of 4 steps now. Well, now within those steps, essentially what you do would have different registration paths and different questions, of course. But as long as you have that link across the top, which I see in a lot of registration forms, and I think that will really help, just show the progress. Hopefully that helps. So I'll answer maybe one more, and then we'll let you guys go. But last question here, how many events have you used gaming features at, and how did they work out? Now, we used to use them a lot for exhibitions because they work so well for exhibitors, driving people to those exhibition booths. So that was really important for us to be able to help the planner drive revenue. We've used it for a hell of a lot of exhibitions. What we've seen open up recently is people using it for smaller events, training events, courses, because then they can actually run it throughout the year. We've got a university in Scotland who are using it, and actually get their they opened up an app for Freshers Week, and what they did was then start using gamification following that Freshers Week to keep them engaged, keep getting content, and keep that running, and actually sending out notifications to keep them engaged. I've got their app on the phone. I keep getting notifications letting me know of drink offers from the local bar and things like that for the freshers and the students. So again, I've seen it used really effectively for small events to extend the life cycle there.
You've still got a few minutes left.
Oh, really?
Nick, if you want to answer a couple more questions before we wrap up.
Oh, okay, cool. Right, good stuff. I'd like to see if anything's coming through. So, how do you engage the less tech-savvy delegation, especially with gamification? Again, a really good question, because I don't think it's around generally gamification. It's how do we increase the event app adoption for those people who are kind of less tech-savvy? How do we get them to download something? And it's got to be so intuitive. I think, one of the key things, again, when you're looking at this technology, is ask about the user experience team that technology providers have. How do they test the features that are coming through? Let's not just throw a gamification feature in there because we want it in, but actually let's test it out and make sure that it is intuitive. So no login, for one. If you have to log into a game, nobody's going to use it. It's got to be really simple, one click, and then you're going into that. And then I think more around just identifying the fact that not everybody's going to use it, and that's okay. If 50% of your audience use it, and that's 50% that are really tech savvy, that really want to get engaged, that's 50% of people that you've really engaged and you've got a lot of content from. People will use mobile apps and technology in their own personal ways. Some people just want to know where to go, what to do. Some people just want to be top of the leaderboard and play this thing. So it's okay to identify that we won't get 100% adoption rate on it as well. Cool. I think we've answered everything on there. So any further questions from you guys? Oh, hi, yes.
Hi, Nick. My name's Tova. Nice to meet you.
Hello, lovely to meet you.
It's been very interesting.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you a question in terms of post-event. How do you keep clients still involved with gamification?
Yeah, how to keep them still involved. Yeah, I mean, again, because we always like to... So the question, if nobody heard it, was post-event, how do we keep people engaged and keep them involved after that with gamification? And it's really difficult because, again, we channel a lot of gamification through mobile. So you want to make sure that it's not just gamification that we're engaging them with, but it's the whole mobile experience. People are walking around after an event with a mobile app on their device following the event, and nobody deletes apps until they run out of space. I've got 1 million apps on my phone that I never use. But they will delete it if they get to a point where they're running out of space. So what we need to do is keep that engaged. So push notifications, again, for me, a really powerful tool of making sure that they can go back in. So, for example, we've had clients who create new badges on games, and then every time a new badge is released, they'll send a notification out saying, "Hey, badge number 8 has been released now," and people go, "Oh, okay. Well, actually, I want to climb the leaderboard still." And again, keep it incentivizing. There is one key fundamental theory as well that basically says that if you give people smaller prizes quickly, rather than a large prize at the end, they're more likely to stay engaged. So it's got to be little kind of increments of prizes. So, every time you release a badge, then maybe a prize, whatever it may be, rather than having one key goal. So there's a lot of studies around that just make sure that you can kind of keep it going regularly. Does that help?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks so much.
I've just got a quick question on, and you talked about the push notifications post-event. How do you advise your customers to maintain that balance? Because I've deleted apps before because I've had too many push notifications afterwards. So what advice would you give around that?
Yeah, it's got to be personalised, 100%. I still get notifications now from event apps that I download that are just not relevant to me whatsoever. Telling me, about webinars that are being released, and I just, I don't want that because I'll just switch off notifications on my device. Now, as we're going through registration types, through the registration process, you can really start to utilize all the personalized data that we've got. This is why a lot of planners now are connecting up systems, because you want to get one complete process. So right from the very start, you're identifying whether somebody, they're VIP, they're speaker, whether a certain group, they're attending your event for a certain reason. And then when they're downloading an app, maybe you have personalized content, and then utilizing that following the event as well, and making sure that we're sending relevant content to relevant people. That's nothing new in marketing. It's just that I don't think we utilize event apps in that way yet, which is crazy to me, because that's one of the direct channels that we have, and people have got it with them all the time. So I think just being able to target relevant information. We know which sessions people have gone to if we gather that data. So if we're releasing webinars or we're doing any other events later on down the line that are relevant to that content, then I think that's a way to personalize it and help them. Cool. All right, thank you so much, guys. It's been really great. Thank you. Appreciate your time.